Hi, Hi, everyone, and welcome to Unsupervised Consequences. I am your host, Dino the Genetic Marvel, and this is day 41 of a series chronicling what I've been going through from going, I guess, before the pandemic, being over 450 pounds to 275 as of last week's weigh in. So, the things that we're talking about today are a little thing I call two things per day. So, the quote that I led this with, I'm not sure if my voice sounds a little weird today, but anyways. So the quote that I used for today's post was attributed to M. Scott Peck, and it says, "Until you value yourself, you will not value your time. Until you value your time, you will not do anything with it." One of those things is that when we don't manage our time, it always runs away with us. I remember when I was really doing well at work, and one of my direct manager, who was awesome, her name was Barb. She came up and she goes, "Listen, what do you need?" And I'm like, "More money." She goes, "Can't do that. What else you need?" And I'm like, if you could find a way to make the day longer than 24 hours, say a solid 36, maybe 40, I would love it. She's like, "You and me both, brother." So one of those things, we always run out of time, and it's a weird situation where we never really realize how we run out of time. Like, it's just like, where did the day's done? What happened? And there's good and bad to that, right? Like, so being in a situation where we're enjoying ourselves, that we're so involved in our day and our work and our existence that time passes quickly is a beneficial thing. It's an enjoyable situation. At the same time, that we can get bogged down in our daily life. And this is something new that I've been practicing with my spouse and I, is that we have a set schedule of normal things that we do in our weeks, and those are within balance. We're comfortable. We can function with those things, and they're expected. They're not. They don't cause us any extra difficulty in our brains. But I go by the rule of two, is that we can add one thing per day, no problem. It's simple. We are skilled, adaptable, and have the ability to add one thing per day. It's not a big deal. But as soon as we add two things per day, something happens. And this is something that I've noticed with a lot of people, is that two things is okay once a week, maybe twice a week. But between it has to be a zero thing day. If we go, there's one thing a day, then two things a day, then another two things a day, then another two things a day, it starts to affect our existence. And when I say that, I mean that, as we've talked about planning in the past, was the idea that when
Bluetooth
we,
disconnected. Bluetooth connected.
okay, I don't know what's going on there, but when we go through a situation that our timing can be a little bit wonky, or we can get flustered, then we're not going to act like ourselves. We're not going to make decisions like we normally would. Our emotional state might be in question, and even people may not be able to rely on our responses that would be normal. So, like for myself, in uncomfortable situations, I tend to use humor, and that is neither here nor there. It's just a thing that I do. I think a lot of people do it. It is a defense mechanism. It's a response to trauma and all that kind of fun and exciting stuff. But that being said, um, I incorporate that humor into my everyday life. I try and be an enjoyable companion or guest, and I try and make things as light as possible. My wife knows that that's a big fat lie. Just to be honest, I'm extremely tightly wound, and I get anxious about things, and I have a hard time. I do have a really good game face that I put on, and I think my wife wishes I used it more when I dealt with our lives in general. And I have been trying to, but that's a longer mountain that I'm trying to climb in general, just to be a more mild mannered person. I know for a lot of time, I would take edibles to bring myself to a more mild state of mind. And I have stopped since doing that just because I thought I had done it for long enough, and I didn't want to do it anymore. But that being said, there's a certain amount of understanding that when you stop responding how people expect you to respond, then they start questioning how comfortable they are with you and what to expect from you, and things that they hold near and dear and attribute to their experience with dealing with you, that it may not be okay anymore, or they may have misjudged, or maybe that they've done something wrong. It adds a lot of stress to the situation, and it reverberates through every interaction that we have through the day. And that's why we try and follow the rule of two, is that two things is going to, number one, very possibly ruin that day. That's a given. But even if it ruins that day, it's going to reverberate throughout the rest of the week. So we do our best. Like, look, sometimes you just can't get away from it, right? Especially if you have uh, children, or a volatile work environment, or things like that. There's a lot of things that can affect that, and that's not to criminalize, or look down on those situations. Those are part of life, and there are times when we will be in a high stress situation and we will make decisions, and a lot of times people will go back and say things like, "Oh, I was going through a lot at that time." Just a little while ago, I explained in my last series, "Where Did the Rest of Me Go?" how I had lost my brother right when I first started, and that really made things quite difficult for some time, and I'm still trying to deal with that situation. Uh, but at the same time, I'm trying not to let it affect me on the grand scheme of things, because I'm still here, and still working away at things. So that being said, one of the keys to developing in that sense was that both me and my wife are capable to deal with things that come up. But when we plan for those things, it can be a lot more difficult. And when we load up our schedules, and I have a bad habit of this, I have doubled and triple and quadruple booked our evenings before. And at the last second, I just canceled a bunch of stuff, because I'm always like, why would you do that to yourself? She's like, I'll go wherever you want to go, but like, you're not going to have a good time, and you're not giving people that due regard of being a good guest either, right? Um, and that's something that you have to understand, is that if you don't take the time to respect your own schedule, then you're not going to be respecting other people's, right? And that goes back to that quote, is the idea that once you start respecting yourself and your time, you realize how much of a commodity it is. A lot of times, and a lot of what I've been reading lately has also went on to explain that we don't really realize how valuable certain things are, like our health, right? A lot of people are like, "Oh, I need money." Okay, good. If you had all the money in the world, but your health was failing you, which is more important? Health. Great. The same idea was, even if you were of poor health, but you were running out of time for whatever case, you can't just buy more time. I think there was a movie about that where you could buy more time, because that's not how life works. And it's in that moment where we understand that having respect for our own existence and our own time puts us in a situation where we can recalculate the values of our existence. And when we recalculate what we're doing, it will cause us to change not only our perspectives, but how we interact with things. I know for myself, there have been times where people are like, "Hey, can you come to this event?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not. I don't want to come to that." And people are like, "Well, that's rude." I'm like, "No, I have something more important to do. I'm trying to focus on something, and it's important." Um, that being said, it is something that you want to take the time to explain to people, that you're not trying to be a dick, and you're just trying to you're booked, or that you're just not in a state where you can handle that many things at a time, which is fairly reasonable. But it's important to understand that that is one of the key components to time management, is respecting our own time. I am notoriously bad for attributing things. My mom's That's true, Cole. I just say my mom said no. That is not a bad answer. And even I told my wife, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna say that my wife has told me that I have to stay home. And my wife's like, why are you making me the bad guy? I'm like, come on, you're always the bad guy, right? And that's the thing is understanding that we can attribute to somebody else is fine. And I was having this conversation with somebody else, I think on my podcast Generation Dan, which we did on the weekend, was that we're at a stage in our existence where if something goes wrong and people are like, oh, what happened? I'm like, oh, there was a ghost. I don't know. You're just gonna have to do that. Thanks, Desir. So all that being said is one of the key components where I think we'll leave it there is that have respect for your time. Know that you can't get it back. With that being said, change your perspective of what is valuable and what is not valuable and how you burden yourself with other people's demands. That way you can push forward and make yourself the primary focus of your own existence and creating a time and situation where you benefit specifically. So this has been Unsupervised Consequences, day 41. Please like and subscribe. I have a lot of new subscribers, so please welcome, and I hope you enjoy this. If you think somebody may benefit from this, please feel free to send it to them. I think a lot of people need help when it comes to time management, and I think it's a good thing. So please feel free to do that. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, and I will be back tomorrow with more information. Bye bye.